A region is a physical location around the world where we cluster data centers. The cluster of data centers are called availability zones. So each region consists of multiple isolated and physically separated cluster of data centers called availability zones. So Azure has over 60 plus announced regions available in over 140 countries. Availability zone is a unique physical location within Azure region. So each availability zone is made up of one or more data centers with independent power, cooling, networking, and connectivity. So before we move on, let's try to understand in detail what is all about a region. On to the left-hand side, the tower picture, what you see, there are three buildings and all of them put together, it is called Azure region. Down below, it has been mentioned as Azure region. Do you see that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is one region. We can also, in a common man's language, we can refer it to as a country or a location, where we have multiple availability zones. This is availability zone 1, this is availability zone 2, and this is availability zone 3. It could be like independent individual state or city where the data center is there. And again, let us not have the confusion between a data center and an availability zone. An availability zone can have multiple data centers. On to the right side, we have another picture. This entire building premises is one availability zone. Here you can see there are 4 buildings, right? 4 premises. So each one is a data center. Okay. So here in this case, we have 4 data centers located in one single place. All these 4 data centers are interconnected, interlinked, and all these 4 data centers put together is one availability zone. So all these 4 data centers will have one common IP address. And beneath that, we can create our own VNet, that is a virtual net, and we can create as many VMs, virtual machines, as we want. Okay, so likewise, like this type of availability zone, there will be minimum 3 availability zones in one Azure region. Likewise, this one Azure region, we have 60 plus announced regions available across 140 countries in Azure, Microsoft Azure. And availability zones are tolerant to local failures, can range from software and hardware failures to events such as earthquakes, floods, fires, and even war, anything to name. So tolerance to failures is achieved with minimum of 3 separate availability zones present in all regions. So what is this tolerance? How Azure will manage to reach this, to overcome these failures? See, let us say, for example, you have created one VM in availability zone 1, let us say. Okay, the replica of this virtual machine is there in availability zone 2 and availability zone 3 as well. So whatever is reason, if we say, let us say this entire data center is gone down due to earthquake or floods or any of the natural calamities, or even the power shutdown, power failure, or the data center or availability zone has some major issues. In that case, your VM will automatically will be available or accessible from AZ2, that is availability zone 2 or availability zone 3. So likewise, there will be latency in milliseconds. So immediately your backend, whatever the server that you got connected, that will shift over and all your application will start accessing its data from availability zone 2 or availability zone 3 in the event of availability zone 1 going down. Okay, so this is all about region and availability zone. This is one of the core important topic. Unless you have a thorough understanding about a region and availability zone, it will be much difficult for anyone to understand the upcoming topics. So Microsoft Azure virtual machines are on-demand computing service that allows users to host their applications or systems in the cloud on either Windows or Linux operating system. As of now, in Azure, we have only 2 operating systems that are supported, and other operating systems, yes, Android, iOS, these things are available, but the popular one and on-demand support service is available for these 2, Windows as well as Linux. So the Azure VMs are listed under infrastructure as a service category in Azure. Why IaaS? Why infrastructure as a service? Because Microsoft Azure will provide the hardware part, and the service provider will take care of the ownership of few of the components like the network, the storage, correct, which we have discussed in the previous class. Other things like the operating system, the user data, these things has to be taken care by the user himself. So in large, the data in large that is in large data centers, cloud service providers combine group of physical servers to be made available to many cloud service consumers through a process called virtualization. So here in this pictorial presentation, you can see there are group of servers. You can see server 1, server 2, server 3, server 4. All the servers put together, it becomes one single high-end server. And this server may be having 16 GB RAM, this may be having 32, this may be having another 32, this may be having 64. So all of them put together, it comes to around 256 GB of RAM. That 256 GB RAM is available for all the virtual machines. Here you can see that has been created. So you might have observed while we were creating the virtual machine, the default one what we have selected, it may be having 1 GB RAM, or this may be having 2 GB. This may be GPU based, or this may be memory based, where we need 32 GB RAM. All that resources are drawn from here, from all the 4 servers put together. So as a user, as an end user, for us, all these 4 or 8 or 10, whatever is the number of servers, all of them put together is one single server. And in that, we will be hosting our individual virtual machines. And these individual virtual machines are, though hosted on a same physical server, but they are completely isolated from each other. There is no link between any of these these multiple virtual machines. They are all completely separated, completely isolated. How it is isolated? It has been isolated with the help of VNet, virtual network, or VPC, virtual private cloud. Okay, so that means each VM is a copy of some part of shared resources, that is physical server. That is what we mean. So each of these virtual machines are some part of these 4 or 5 servers in the pictorial presentation what we have. So in a data center, to be optimized and used according to the need. So the users can install operating system of their choice. That means this VM can have Windows, this VM can have Windows 10, this can have Linux, this can have Linux, another distribution, maybe Red Hat, SUSE, or Mandrake, or Kali Linux, any of them. So each and every virtual machine will be backed with its own operating system as per the user's choice. And we can configure the networks, the shared resources, that is the shared hard disk, and it becomes altogether an independent computer or the server. And we will be the whole and sole owner, and we will take the major part of the responsibility of these virtual machines till we decommission it or till we delete it. Okay, so the Azure VMs provide users with flexibility of virtualization options without having any upfront investment and maintenance cost in physical infrastructure that runs. To take an example here, all of us, we have our own Azure account, what we have created, right? And some of us, we have a pay-as-you-go model. Some of us, we are using a free tier account. And there is no upfront investment we are making, correct? Whatever is the expenses that we are going to incur, maybe if we are on a free trial account, That money we will be paying only at the end of the month once the billing is generated. So that means upfront we are not making any kind of investment. That is what it means. So what is all about a virtualization? Virtualization is the process of creating software-based virtual version of a computer. So virtualization is nothing but we do not have a physical hardware. The physical hardware is here. These are all the virtual machines created out of software. Okay. So with dedicated amount of CPU, memory, storage that are borrowed from physical host computer or server that has its own independent operating system. What does that mean? Here in this pictorial presentation, what we have, this server may be running with Linux Red Hat Enterprise operating system. In this Red Hat Enterprise operating system, there is a virtualization software installed and configured. This virtualization software will help the user to create as many as virtual machines he or she needs. Correct? And this has got its own independent operating system. And based on this, n number of virtual machines are created, and each and every virtual machine has got its own operating system. And none of these operating systems are directly or indirectly working with this core primary operating system. That's what it is. The software inside a virtual machine cannot interfere with the host computer's primary operating system. So a virtual machine is a computer file typically called an image. You remember last time when we have hosted two virtual machines, a Linux and a Windows-based virtual machine, we have picked up an image, right? That is Windows Server 2019, 2016, or 2022 server, or Linux-based virtual machine. That is the image actually what we picked up. This image is already pre-configured and has got a pre-installed application or software within it. So when you install that particular, when you pick that particular image and install the, create the virtual machine, it has got all the default applications that are already embedded in it. So this file or this virtual machine behaves like an actual physical computer itself. So it can run in a window as a separate computing environment, often to run different operating systems. It is actually meant for to run different operating systems and use the different applications and databases as per the user's need or requirement. So next comes the virtual machine components. What are all the components that are there in a virtual machine? So the main, there are three major components of a virtual machine. Any virtual machine you take, a compute, storage, and networking. So there is one more component in Azure, not with other cloud service providers, which is called Azure Fabric Controller. What is all about Azure Fabric Controller? So it is a controller service that can be added, that has been added by Microsoft Azure. So it detects the health status of virtual machine while it is working. So if at all there is any hiccups, any issues with the virtual machine, an auto recovery is it will perform auto recovery on these virtual machines that are failed, and it will revive back to the working status. How it does, it has got two types of detection. One is called reactive mode and another one is called proactive mode. There are two types of detection. So this Azure Fabric Controller will be keep performing the detection on these virtual machines, what we have hosted and what we are using, either through reactive mode or through proactive mode. So in reactive mode, the failures are detected based on the heartbeats. Heartbeat means there is a software daemon or a service in case of Windows. We have seen services.msc, right? We can see various services that are running. So there is one particular service called Azure Fabric Controller. So this will be keep checking for the status, the working status of the virtual machine, like a CPU. Is the CPU getting overheated, or is the CPU getting overburdened with many applications running? Similarly, the RAM. memory? Is it running short of memory, or is there any virus or malware or a spyware infection? Is the virtual machine behaving abnormal? If any such kind of thing is noticed, this Azure Fabric Controller, what it does, immediately it will create another virtual machine. It is something like a load balancer. And this present virtual machine that has got a defect or issue, that will be isolated. In that place, this new virtual machine will be placed. That is how it works in case of reactive mode. In the same time, in case of proactive mode, the failures are detected based on situations leading to a failure. What does that mean? Situations leading to a failure. Let us say a hard disk is almost reached at its end of life. It is not giving full storage capacity. Or you take the backup of battery. In our laptop, we have noticed, right? The laptop, the company says that it will provide 6 hours battery backup. But over a period of time, within 2 to 3 months or 6 months down the line, we notice we are getting only 4 hours of backup. Down the line, still further, if we go, it comes to 1 hour or half an hour. The moment the charger is on, it shows that 100% charge. Once the power is gone, or once the charger is disconnected, removed, within no time, it will come to half an hour, and within no time, it will come down to 20 minutes, 10 minutes, and the power will go. Though it was showing in the beginning that it is the backup is there for 4 hours or completely 100% charge. That is what situation based. So it will be keep collecting the logs based on the situation as it detects that this particular hardware is about to fail within short time, or maybe it is expecting to fail. Even in that case, it will isolate those virtual machines, and this Azure Fabric Controller will create another virtual machine, and that will take over all the workload from the virtual machine that will be getting isolated. So when the failure is detected, Azure Fabric Controller will initiate a recovery by either deploying the VM on a healthy host and mark the failed resources as unhealthy and remove it from its list for further use or redeployment. This is how exactly Azure Fabric Controller works. So all the 4 components are the major core components of Azure Virtual Machine. So these are all the major components of Azure Virtual Machines. Any doubts, clarification needed? Do I need to stretch upon on these topics? Please let me know so that we will address that and move on to the next slide. All right, next we have another important topic called Azure Resource Manager. So what is all about an Azure Resource Manager? Is also famously called ARM. So it is a deployment and management service in the cloud, in the Azure cloud. So it provides management layer that enables you to create, update, and delete resources. When we say resources, we are referring to virtual machines in your Azure account. So Microsoft Azure provides hundreds of quick start templates for getting started with automating your cloud storage infrastructure. So it has all the configuration that users need to set up any environment. So it is open source and available on various platforms. So ARM templates are actually Java servlet scripts, and they define the infrastructure and helps to configure your project. So how exactly ARM works? Today we'll be performing lab exercise on this. So how exactly ARM works? So in cloud, we have so many templates are available. Quick start template. We will pick one of the template, and this template using which we will deploy a virtual machine. In the last previous class, the lab exercise was what we used to do. We used to go handpick virtual machine image. Then we used to select the availability zone or region, select the disk storage, select the networking component, and select the security policy, group policy, everything, correct? Of course, we did not go in detail. That is the natural actual procedure of hosting a virtual machine. And so here in the template, what happens? Everything is predefined. So it says, okay, this is the virtual machine. If you say you want to host a Windows virtual machine, straight away the Windows virtual machine is hosted within 2 to 3 minutes. Of course, for creating a virtual machine and making that virtual machine up and running, it may take a while. but for a user to create that virtual machine, it is hassle-free because everything is available in the template. When we say template, you can simply take an example of your MS Word or Excel or PowerPoint template, the pre-templates which are already available. Correct? You can pick the template and you can start creating the document. Say, for example, in Windows, in MS Word, you'll pick a template of a resume. So you need not to prepare that resume format complete. There are so many formats of a resume templates are available. You handpick any one of them and you just do the fill up the blanks. You copy paste the text of your details and your resume is ready. Correct? Similarly, Azure has got many quick start templates, so using which we can host a virtual machine. Okay, so if all good with this, we will quickly move on to a lab exercise. We'll perform two. One will deploy a Windows virtual machine, and another one will create a Linux-based virtual machine.